Weakness doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And when it does, most men don't hear it. They think they're being kind. They think they're being generous. They think they're doing the right thing. But what they don't realize is that, in silence, perception is forming. And for many women, it's the subtle signs, not the loud gestures, that tell them everything they need to know. In a world where strength is often misdefined, the true indicators of weakness go unnoticed by the very people who reveal them. It starts with how you carry yourself in conversation. When a man constantly seeks approval, when he looks for nods, validation, and reassurance in every word, he signals doubt. And doubt, over time, erodes attraction. Most men don't see it. They think agreement builds rapport. They agree too quickly. They soften their tone. They avoid conflict at all costs. But a woman watching this isn't thinking he's agreeable. She's wondering why he's afraid to disagree. She's watching the absence of a backbone, not the presence of politeness. One of the most misunderstood signs of weakness is over-explanation. You say something, then you quickly try to soften it. You apologize for opinions. You clarify things no one questioned. You overtalk. What you're really doing is showing discomfort with your own presence. And that discomfort becomes contagious. A woman might smile. She might nod. But in her mind, she's making a calculation. If you can't hold your own words, how can you hold a frame in a relationship? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And yet, many men avoid this entirely. They mold themselves to the environment. They mirror back what they think the woman wants. They become overly accommodating, hoping that kindness will buy affection. But affection isn't a transaction. It's a response. When you suppress your edges, your opinions, and your standards in order to keep the peace, you don't seem enlightened. You seem afraid. And fear in a man, when it's rooted in insecurity, never creates desire. Another subtle indicator of weakness is inconsistency between words and actions. A man who speaks with conviction but folds under pressure tells a story without knowing it. Women are pattern readers. They don't need a lecture to know who you are. They observe. When you say no but give in later, when you set boundaries but fail to enforce them, when you speak of goals but chase distractions, they register the inconsistency. And slowly, without confrontation, they lose respect. Not because you're flawed, but because you don't protect your own word. There is also a weakness in neediness, especially emotional neediness masked as openness. Vulnerability is powerful when it's grounded in strength. But oversharing in the early stages of connection, looking for emotional caretaking, or relying on a woman to regulate your esteem doesn't read as trust. It reads as dependence. And dependence, no matter how emotionally phrased, is pressure. When you put your emotional survival in someone else's hands, you don't come across as courageous, you come across as heavy. And people instinctively step away from weight they didn't choose to carry. You can also spot weakness in a man's relationship with silence. Weak men fill every gap. They speak to impress. They overexploit humor. They chase laughter, attention, or affirmation. They're uncomfortable with the space between words. But silence is where presence lives. A man who is at ease with silence shows confidence without effort. He lets the moment breathe. He doesn't try to entertain his way into being liked. And that absence of effort becomes a kind of gravity. Weakness, in contrast, tries too hard to matter. One of the most common yet invisible signs of perceived weakness is seeking permission for self-worth. It looks like asking for validation about choices that should already be made. It sounds like, "Is that okay with you?" Or, "Do you think I should do this?" in moments where leadership is required. When a man places his direction in someone else's hands, even gently, it signals uncertainty. And while cooperation is healthy, Directionless men create unease. Because what begins as indecision often grows into emotional outsourcing. And no one wants to mother the man they're meant to admire. At the heart of all these signals is a deeper truth. Many men don't realize when they've given up control of the frame. The frame is the unspoken container of energy, direction, and intention in an interaction. The man who leads with quiet self-possession doesn't force the frame. He simply holds it. But when a man waits, defers, adapts endlessly, or lets others dictate the tone, he forfeits that frame. And once it's lost, the connection changes. Respect lowers. Desire fades. The dynamic rewrites itself. Jung spoke often about shadow work, the idea that we must confront the darker, repressed parts of ourselves to grow whole. Many men avoid this work. They hide their frustration. They suppress their ambition. They pretend they don't want power, don't feel jealousy, don't fear rejection. But avoidance doesn't build character, it fragments it. And women, especially intuitive ones, see the disconnection. They can feel when a man is smiling through a swallowed voice. They can sense when charm is compensating for a collapsed self. Weakness doesn't lie in vulnerability. It lies in the refusal to confront what's real. Sometimes, weakness is communicated in how you respond to pressure. Do you become defensive? Do you seek to please? Do you change your values to avoid discomfort? These reactions are noticed more than men think. Not because women are judging harshly, but because they're measuring strength. Not strength of size. Not strength of wealth. But strength of self. And when that strength is missing, no amount of status or words can replace it. Another place weakness hides is in unresolved past wounds. Men who carry bitterness toward women, who constantly relive betrayals, who use sarcasm to mask disappointment, carry a scent. It's the scent of emotional injury that was never cleaned, only covered. And while pain is human, unhealed pain tends to repeat itself. Women may not say anything, but they feel the caution. They feel the edge. And eventually, they distance themselves not because of the pain, but because of what it still controls. Weakness also reveals itself in the inability to walk away. When a man tolerates disrespect, poor treatment, or constant emotional games in the name of love, he sends a loud message. He says, "I'll stay, no matter what it costs me." That's not loyalty. That's fear. And fear never commands admiration. The man who can walk away, not with anger, but with calm conviction, shows more strength in silence than most do in words. Because walking away means he values his dignity more than proximity. And that's a form of power few truly possess. Even posture tells a story. A man who slouches into himself, who avoids eye contact, who fidgets under pressure is showing how he relates to himself. The body speaks what the mind tries to hide. And while posture may seem minor, it accumulates. Day after day, moment after moment, these small signals build a narrative. One that either inspires confidence or invites correction. The truth is, most women don't point these things out. Not because they're hiding something, but because they're reading something. They're reading your essence. And your essence is louder than your words. They may not always be conscious of what they're seeing, but they feel it. And what they feel shapes how they respond. Outsmarting this perception isn't about changing who you are, it's about becoming more of who you truly are. It's about facing your shadow, reclaiming your voice, and standing with quiet certainty. Strength is not aggression. It's not loud. It doesn't seek approval. Strength is inner alignment. It's the man who knows where he stands, even when no one claps. The man who doesn't need to dominate, but will never be dominated. The man who respects others, but never abandons himself. Masculine strength isn't about image, it's about clarity. And clarity only comes when you stop performing, stop apologizing for existing, and start walking your truth. when you speak with intention, when you hold your silence, when you detach from outcomes and focus on integrity. That's the man no one sees as weak, because that's the man who owns himself. So when you ask, do women see me as weak? The deeper question is, do I respect myself enough to be misunderstood without panic? To stand alone without fear? To speak less and mean more? Because when that answer is yes, you don't have to wonder what they think. You'll already know. Think about the last time you explained too much. The last time you said yes when you meant no. The last time you shrank to keep someone else comfortable. Were you seen as kind or as uncertain? Were you respected or tolerated? Strength begins the moment you choose clarity over comfort. And that moment is always now.